Today, I'm going to be looking at 3 different Switch controllers at 3 very different prices. This controller costs $16, this one goes for $43, and this final crazy one I bought for $150. We're going to be comparing things like the buttons, the thumbsticks, the grips, and just any other interesting features that these controllers have, because there is quite a bit of new features that I wasn't even expecting for every single one of them. And then I'm going to be play testing each of them with some of the most popular Switch games. Then after looking at all of them, I'll tell you which one I like the best, at its price point of course. But for now, let's start with the $16 controller. So yes, this controller I bought for $16. Now all these prices are in Canadian dollars, but I will put the conversions up somewhere. But still, that is an incredibly cheap value for a controller. But I mean, what you pay for is what you get, right? Already this feels super plasticky and very clicky, some of the buttons, like those are the L and R buttons making that loud of a noise. The control sticks do feel a bit stiff, same with the D-pad and everything. Oh, and especially with the plus start and the home buttons, those things, they're actually kind of hard to click, in fact. The D-pad's weird though, because it has like this circle dome thing on it naturally, but you can take it off and I guess use the D-pad normally like that. But it is so low without the dome thing, and that makes it very awkward to use in general since you're pretty well flush with the rest of the controller. And then the triggers are actually analog, they're not buttons like every other Switch controller. So it's kind of pointless to put like analog triggers on your Switch controller considering the Switch doesn't even take analog inputs like that. But now onto some of the unique features that this controller has, because even at $16 it does actually have some. It has a turbo button for starters, so pretty well a basic feature, but it's nice that it even has it on this controller. And I'll see how easy it is to use the turbo in the playtest in just a sec. But this controller also comes with these 2 rubber grips for the thumbsticks. This is actually smart because they are cheap thumbsticks, so a little rubber would actually make them a lot better. So let's see how these feel. Now they are a pain to get on, I'll tell you that. Yeah guys, what a great idea. Let's make rubber grips for our controller, but make them absolutely impossible to put on. Brilliant. There we go. Both grips on. And honestly, they still feel kind of weird, even with these grips. Like, they have these just rubber balls, but they kind of dig into your thumbs. It's not that pleasant. I think it'd be better with like a different texture or something. Only one way to tell for sure, and that's with the playtest. So let's see how this controller does. The first thing I immediately noticed during the playtest was how crazy the rumble was on this controller. Okay, watch. Okay, so the rumble is crazy with this controller. And then the buttons themselves felt very cheap and clicky. Oh yeah, dude, the bumpers are so clicky. Like, I have to talk over the bumpers. I'm not even like exaggerating here. The analog triggers were pretty awkward too because of how long it took to register the input. I should, when I click this trigger, pull my shield out. All right, that's the button. But look how long it takes. Just take a look. Now it gets the input, like. So there's a bit of delay every time you use the triggers. I tried wind bombing in Breath of the Wild because it's kind of a hard glitch to pull off sometimes, but after a few tries, I actually did this. Ready? Okay. Oh, I did the wrong bomb. Dang it. Oh, I did it though! I did it! Ah, second try. Let's go. Then I tried to win an online game of Smash Bros, and at first it didn't start out so well. Already the vibrations okay, the rumble needs to chill. Oh, this Zora is killing me. Listen, if I lose, I'm blaming the controller. But somehow, I ended up turning the tables. Oh, you're getting whooped by... You're getting done by a guy with a $16 controller? What a mistake! Yes! $16 controller wins the first match! Let's go. Splatoon was very hard to aim because of how the rumble actually messed with the gyro controls. Okay, I'm just holding straight and look how off I'm going. Look at that! I'm going so off because the vibrations. Look at this. Straight. It's taking me right into that. That's crazy. And to top it off, after many tries, and even with using the instructions, the turbo button didn't even work on this controller either. Turbo plus any button. Doesn't work. Any button plus turbo. Doesn't work either. In fact, on the instructions, they couldn't even spell turbo right. Yeah, so overall, this was a pretty rough playtest. But at a price point of just $16, you could actually get 9 of these controllers for cheaper than just one of the $150 controller that we're going to be looking at later in this video. So you're going to want to stick around for that, because it's actually crazy some of the features that this controller has. But for now, let's move on to the $43 controller. I think the first thing that is immediately noticeable about this thing is the design. And I actually really like it too. It comes in white and black, but I got the white one because I like how it contrasts with the black buttons here. And it has this really interesting cracked pattern, as it looks like, which I really haven't seen on another Switch controller. But that's not all it does with its design, because if you turn it on, it actually lights up, and you can see there's LED RGB lights in the controller. It's kind of hard to see with the bright lighting I got here, but I'll show a more normal, natural lighting or like a nighttime shot so you can really see how this looks. And it's pretty cool. There's all these different color combinations you can choose. However, there are a lot of like hot spots and some more dim spots on the RGB lights, so it's not like even. And then yeah, if you click this button here, there's a whole bunch of different color combinations you can do as well, so I like the customization options. But besides aesthetics, how does this controller actually feel? Well, it feels pretty good, to be honest. This time the thumbsticks feel way better. It actually feels natural just to move them around in your hand. It doesn't feel like too cheap or anything. And the triggers are slightly different with this thing. They actually kind of flare out, like they really flare out here. I know the normal Switch controller does have a little flare like this, but these ones exaggerate it, let's say. I actually do like how this feels. There's a lot of room just to rest your thumbs very naturally. And like the last controller, this also has a turbo button, so again, this would be useful for like those retro type games. I mean, yeah, overall, it doesn't feel quite as nice as the actual Switch controller, but it feels very solid in its own right. And keep in mind that this is like half the price as a normal Switch controller, but there's only really one way to tell how this plays out, and it's by trying it out. I first tested out the rumble again, and it wasn't as bad as the first controller, but still a bit overtuned compared to a normal Switch controller. There's still a lot of rumble here too, I gotta admit, like, look at this. There's still a good amount, but it wasn't as ridiculous as the first one. Then I tried testing out a lot of the color combinations on the controller, and while I like this, I did notice one minor complaint with this feature. One thing with the colors, like pink for example, you see, it always has this blue light on to show you which player you are, but it shows like a blue light and it meshes with every other color, which just isn't that great on a controller where you're supposed to be able to customize the colors. And hooray! The turbo button actually worked as intended on this controller. Okay, let me test this turbo. Let's see if this works. So let's jump. Turbo B. Turbo B. Oh, there we go. See? That's how a turbo should work. It just works. So now I don't even have to click any buttons. In Breath of the Wild, everything felt very solid. The gyro and combat were pretty smooth. No, the gyro seems decent. Like, I could see myself playing Breath of the Wild like this. Not too shabby. And the Smash Bros test actually worked out very well. Oh! Get out of here, Falco. Oh! Get done! Let's go! I actually really liked the feel of the triggers while I was playing Splatoon 3. The extra room to rest your finger was great for shooting games. I mean, yeah, you definitely notice the triggers a lot more in, like shooter type games like this. And they're nice. I mean, like, they're nice how it has that extra little flair to it. Oh, this guy's hiding. Overall, this controller felt pretty solid. Alright, and here we have it, guys. The $150 Switch controller. Now, first impressions with this thing, everything is so fancy here. I mean, it comes with this actually pretty nice carrying case here. The Switch controller fits very snug inside, and it has room for all the accessories that this controller also comes with, so it's very nice to have. And even the instructions for this thing are just so fancy. I mean, look at this. It's like I'm being invited to a club or something. Look, you open the cardboard like this, like, ho, this is fancy. Yeah, but I mean, okay, it's an instruction. Oh, it's a bunch of words, boring stuff. We want to talk about the controller, so let's take a look at it. Like, first of all, it does have a good weight to it. It feels just very good in your hands, I guess. On the back, it has this like really unique rubber grip, which just feels great to hold on to, and honestly, your hands really don't slip at all when you hold this thing. And then as I'm just clicking the buttons here, everything just feels solid. Like nothing feels cheap or plasticky. Same with the control sticks as well. Like these just feel really solid and well made. Now the bumper triggers, they're actually really tiny. The ZR and ZL specifically. I kind of like the other ones from the last controller where they flare out more, but these are all right. It's not a huge thing, but it's just something I noticed. However, as for features, one of the big aspects that this thing has are these back paddles here. So as you can see, there's like 4 paddles at the back of the controller, and basically you can map them to any button that you want. Now I'm actually really excited to test these because I really like these back paddles on controllers. They make it way easier to do stuff like jumping and turning the camera at the same time. So I think these would be great for like games like Splatoon or Fortnite on Switch. I think it'll give you a great advantage, but we'll try that in the playtest. But if you're not a fan of these though, you can just outright take them off, which is kind of nice. And there is a cover for this, and the cover just snaps on like that, so no like parts are exposed here. So it's pretty versatile like that. Also, each paddle comes off individually, so if you only want to use 1, 2, or even 3, you can take the other ones off, and it's very simple to do, so that's a good thing to have. And this controller actually has a headphone jack right on the controller, which the normal Switch controllers don't have. So it is nice that you can listen to game audio. However, this only works if you plug in the controller, which just is a weird limitation of this thing. Then on the more aesthetic side of things, this controller actually has a swappable faceplate, so if you don't like the black, you can put on the white design and see if you like that. And this is super easy to do too. This thing's all magnetic, the faceplates, so it just pops off like that, and then you can take the white one and simply put it back on, and then that's what it looks like. And I kind of like the white, how it contrasts with the black buttons here. And it has these little red/orange looking lines around the joysticks. But we're not done yet because this controller also has 2 extra thumbsticks that it comes with. This also ties into these removable faceplates because that's how you switch control sticks super easily. Now I do gotta say, it is weird. It comes with 2 control sticks, but one is concave and one is convex, so it's not like 2 of the same, surprisingly enough. And these 2 extra ones are longer, so they're both a different length, but they both have different tops, I guess you would call it. So yeah, I don't know why they didn't give you 2 pairs of each if you like the different, grips at the top here with this different size. However, in most games, if you want to aim better, you generally only replace the right thumbstick, as that's the one you aim with, the other one you just walk with. So I'm gonna try that with the longer joystick and see if your aim is better. And then it just snaps in like that. Put the faceplate back on the controller, and let's get to the playtest. The first thing I tried was the paddle buttons, and they were super easy to map buttons onto them and were great to use. Step 1, hold this. Oh, it's on. Step 2, B. Step 3, paddle. Boom, and now the jump button's on the paddle. Oh, that was pretty easy. Oh yeah, this is way better. I love it like this. Like, it takes a bit to get used to, but I love how paddles can free up the buttons. Then just the general feel of the controller I really liked as well. But other than that, just as a general notice, like this feels really good. I like the grip and everything, and just how to control Mario, it feels great. However, I noticed there is no rumble at all in this controller, which is honestly a huge disappointment, especially for its price. But then, I found another really great use for the paddles in Breath of the Wild. Actually, this is good. This is really good. Okay, this is why, again, I like the paddles, because having a run button, I actually hate in 3D games if it's on a button, because Look, run, then you have to stop to turn. Run, stop to turn. But since we have the paddles, I just go, okay, paddle button, hold. The thing lights up. Click the run button. I'll put it on this paddle. Boom. Look at this. Look at this freedom. This is too nice. You could be running and moving. I love it. That was another problem I had with the Bowser's Fury port thing. In Bowser's Fury, you can control the camera, but you always want to be holding the run button with Mario, so I'd always have to stop turn, so this controller would actually be great for Bowser's Fury. The Smash Bros test, again, went pretty well, too. Come on. There we go. 3 for 3. I didn't lose a single Smash Brothers game this entire video. I'll take it. Then this controller felt really good in Splatoon 3 because of the extra control stick height, which made aiming easier, and the fact that I had jump on a paddle button. Yeah, it's good for scramble, even though I died, it's good for scramble situations where you gotta like move really quick and you just can mash the jump button just to make yourself a harder target, make yourself a, harder target to hit. I wasn't a huge fan of these little tiny trigger buttons though. Overall, this controller was awesome, but had some really weird flaws too. Okay, so here's the verdict here. Which one do I like the most at its price point? Which do I think is the best bang for your buck? Well, this one is very cheap. It's incredibly cheap, but it's pretty bad, right? It's a crappy controller. However, it is still usable. So if you have like a little brother, maybe you can buy this controller for him for very cheap and he can use it. I don't think he'd even know a difference. Maybe. That's an exaggeration. But if you're looking for any sort of serious controller, I'd definitely pass on this one. It's just not worth it. Then at the very end of the spectrum, we have this very fancy controller for $150. And out of the three, this is clearly the best one. I mean, it feels the best. It has the most features, has paddles and everything. I love these. However, at $150, there really shouldn't be any compromises, like not having rumble. That's huge. I don't know how this doesn't have any rumble. And some weird limitations on how you have to have it wired in order to use the headphone jack, that sort of thing. However, while I still think it's a fantastic controller for especially competitive games, I'm gonna have to say it's not the winner because of those missing features. So then that leaves the middle controller, the $43 controller, as my favorite for its price. Now keep in mind, this controller costs like half the price of a normal Switch controller, and you get a product that is pretty good and almost on par with Nintendo's own Pro Controller. HD rumble is probably the biggest flaw of this. It does have a pretty decent normal rumble, but it's not as good as the actual HD one. However, the buttons are very comparable. Everything feels very similar, but just not quite as good. Except for these triggers, I really like the flare on these things. They're just nice to hold. And I like the whole design of it with the RGB lights. Again, they're not really practical in like a gameplay sense, but just aesthetically, I think this looks really good. However, the aesthetics alone is not why this controller won. It's just because it pretty well feels almost as good as a normal Switch controller, but it's half the price. And these aesthetics just give it some extra points. Anyways, that's what I think of all these controllers. Subscribe if you like this video and you want to see me do more stuff like this, and I'll see you guys next time.